Mike Owens here, and today I'm joined by the Haitian sensation, Neil Magny, who's back in action the 15th of October, facing Daniel Rodriguez. Neil, always a pleasure. How are things with you today?
Man, I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. How are you doing?
I'm very well, my friend. First and foremost, let's get into the fight because it is a short notice one. Talk to me a little bit about the booking process for getting matched up with D-Rod.
Yeah, so the whole lead up to this fight was just like so many hoops to jump through. Initially, I had a different opponent. Then the opponent pulled out because his wife was expecting a baby around that time or something like that. And then UFC was scrambling to try to find someone else to fill the fight card. I got offered a few names. The one name that I accepted ended up falling through as well. So then I literally went to bed on a Wednesday night without a fight. Woke up Thursday morning with every media outlet saying I was fighting Dan Rodriguez. And I was like, this was never offered, but let me go right to the source and see what's up. So I immediately called the UFC, trying to figure out what's going on. Is there any truth to this whole Dan Rodriguez possibility, anything else like that? And they said, like, hey, that's one of the guys that we offered to fight to. That is a possibility if you want it. It's up to you at this point. So I said, absolutely, let's go ahead and make this fight happen.
So just to clarify, you were planning to fight on the 15th of October. It was more a case of getting the opponent.
Yeah. The date, the October 15th date was offered to me initially. It was just a change of opponents. I mean, initially it was Kevin Holland even, and then they asked if I knew Kevin Holland September 10th, and then Kevin Holland ended up going against Dan Rodriguez, ended up going against Hamzat, ended up retiring. So it was just so much possibilities or what ifs that happened over the last couple of weeks, last couple of days that it took a while to finally land on this fight and this opponent.
Most fighters will say the worst part of a fighter's life is weight cut. Is the second worst part of a fighter's life getting that booking sign, getting the actual confirmed opponent and the confirmed date of who you're going to fight?
Yeah, I mean, cutting weight, training for a fight, all that stuff's easy. You'll be doing it whether or not you had a fight coming up anyway. I mean, I'll be eating well in order for me to perform well and hit different markers in my career. So that part's not difficult at all. I'll be training hard every single day because I want to be one of the best guys out there. So that part wouldn't change at all. The hardest part is actually scheduling the fight and then sticking to that schedule. I mean, it's unfortunate because it's not like we're other sports where you're in season, where NFL, it's like, all right, it's football season for the next 12 weeks, 15 weeks, however long it is. You're committed to playing week after week, day after day. So you're good to go. For us, it's a lot more sporadic where it's like, hey, you can fight every 2 months, every 3 months, or have an 8-month gap or 16-month gap in between. We really don't know how it's going to play out. It changes year to year, moment to moment, and we'll figure it out when it comes. So it makes it very difficult to kind of plan and adjust as far as like when do you peak, when do you pull back training, when you pick up training, and all that kind of stuff. So it makes it very difficult to like plan accordingly. I mean, and just the simple things. How do you enjoy life around your fight schedule where it's like you want to take a vacation or you want to take some time off, but it's like, well, I don't want to take time off because I don't want to get a call for a fight and then figure have to rush and jump back into shape. So I'm going to wait till we're at the fight to get a vacation started, that kind of thing. So I think the hardest part is like actually getting a fight.
Yeah, 100%. If we turn the conversation to the upcoming fight, what does D-Rod as an upcoming opponent do well? What do you think are his key strengths?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things he brings to the table is the fact that he's a very good southpaw boxer. I mean, southpaws tend to give a lot of guys a difficulty. Him being very crisp at boxing definitely gives another level of complexity as well going into the fight. So I feel like those two factors are two significant things that he brings to the table that makes him a dangerous opponent.
What were your opinions on his last fight against the Leech? I mean, obviously it was a fight where both guys had the name on a day's notice. We're talking here about short notice bookings. That was 24 hours. So it's always going to have some aspects of maybe strangeness involved in the performance. But what did you make of his last win against the Leech?
If I'm being 100% honest about his last fight, I don't think he won it all. I actually thought Li Jingliang did enough to win that fight. But as soon as the fight was over, I was smiling ear to ear. I was like, well, that gives me another opponent. So if I'm being honest, it was unfair to see it play out the way it did for Jingliang. But if I'm being selfish, I do appreciate the fact that it played out the way it did for solely because I got another competitor to go against.
MMA math says you beat Li Jingliang comfortably and you believe Li Jingliang beat Daniel Rodriguez. So MMA math would say that technically you should beat Daniel Rodriguez if we can go with that formula. How much do you buy into that?
Yeah, man. I mean, that's the crazy thing about fights. I mean, at the end of the day, like this is a fight he had a little bit more time to prepare for. The last fight he didn't have to cut weight for, so and it wasn't a fight that I thought he took like much damage on in at all. And then the other part is like, I feel like the motivation going into this fight is what makes him dangerous as well. Like, even with myself just saying like I don't think he won that fight. I feel like he's gonna have a chip on his shoulder where it's like, all right, I have to go out there and prove to the world, prove to the guys that I did win that fight. I'm gonna go out there and try to prove against Neil. So I feel like that's another factor to add to the danger category going to fight against Dan Rodriguez, which I have to be ready for. Where I know for a fact he's be going out there trying to prove a point, and I have to be ready for a better version of him that showed up against Jili Yang.
You've obviously, you're talking here about you were trying to get on the October 15th card, but D-Rod's obviously coming off the recent fight at UFC 279, so he's got a much shorter window in between fights, whereas you've been able to get a little bit more prep in. How much do you think the fact that D-Rod's coming off a fight so recently will favour you in terms of the fight going in?
Being a guy who made literally a career out of taking short notice fights, and I feel like that's an advantage when you don't have that long 8-12 week training camp to overthink it and burn yourself out. We're just like, oh my God, my opponent does XYZ, and you spend literally so much time worried about what the other person does, and you forget like, hey, you're a badass also. Like you're great at these particular aspects. You're so worried about what your opponent's gonna do. You're forgetting how great you are and what you do well. So I feel like him taking this short notice fight is actually a good thing to add more to the competition aspect of it, where he's not going to be bogged down with a long training camp, worrying about like all the different things that I do well or that kind of thing. He's coming to this fight like, all right, cool, I'm ready to show up on October 15th with nothing to lose and everything to gain. So I'm going to go out there and give it my best. So I feel like that adds fuel to the fire going into the fight.
Of course. You're my guy, Neil. You know that. You're my guy. I might say this with a little bit of bias, but I would think a lot of fans are more excited for this upcoming fight, Magny versus Rodriguez, than the main event of the card in Alexa Grasso versus Vivian Araujo. And obviously, it's respect to those two ladies, but I think that is the case. Was the main event slot ever offered at all?
No, there wasn't something that was offered at all. But at the end of the day, like that's the another motivating factor as well. Like you know what I mean? Like to get so close and not actually get that main event spot, it's like, okay, cool. Let me go out there and earn it. Like you know what I mean? So like I'm not one of those guys that sits around and say, oh, boo hoo, poor me, I didn't get that main event slot. I kind of take it as like, okay, cool. I didn't get that main event slot. I'm gonna go out there and earn that main event slot next time. And that's where I'm at with this fight. So I know D-Rod is 100% motivated to go out there and prove something, especially how his last fight played out. And I'm in the same exact boat that he is, and add more fuel to the fire. Like I want those main event slots. I want those big name fights. So I'm gonna go out there and perform as if I'm a guy who actually wants those things and get it done.
We've talked about D-Rod feeling like he may have something to prove, given that even though he won his last contest, a lot of people maybe think he didn't deserve the nod. Do you feel in a similar position, given you're coming off the Shavkat Rakhmonov fight? Do you feel an aspect that you have to maybe prove yourself and remind people where Neil Magny stands in this division?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean, you're only as good as your last fight. I know I had some great fights in UFC, been around there a long time, whatever, but everyone's always looking for a reason to kind of rule you out. And it's like, oh, yeah, that guy's history now. So it's literally up to me to go out there and show the world, show everyone, like, damn, Neil is still that dude. Neil's still that guy that has so much more in the tank. I'm excited to see him fight so and so next. With my last fight playing out the way they did, I'm 100% motivated and excited to go out there and show the world why I should be fighting those big name guys.
What is the biggest takeaway you have from the Rakhmonov fight? What is the thing that you look at and go, that's the area that maybe I need to improve on? Or what's the biggest takeaway from that loss to Rakhmonov earlier this year?
The biggest thing for me was number one, getting out of my comfort zone, doing things that I'm not comfortable with. Get like literally, if it means traveling to train with different people and that kind of thing, getting that part done. The other part was just like clearing my plate. Like I have so many things going on outside of fighting sometimes that at times it can be distracting where it takes away from the ability for me to be able to dive in and train fully the way I should for these big fights. And I feel like my last fight was perfect example of that. I had so many things going on that like I felt like I was doing a good job of balancing it all, but in reality, I was doing a lot of things okay and not doing anything great. So going into this training camp, before I even considered jumping back into the gym, jumping back into another training camp, I was like, you know what? Let me clear my plate a bit. Let me get rid of all this extra stuff that I had going on and I've been doing or whatever, and really kind of dial in and focus on like, all right, your only job right now is to be the best possible father possible and go out there and whoop some ass. So I'm not worried about being pulled in 20 different directions and doing all these other things. I'm worried about doing two great things well, being the best possible father and being the best father out there. And that's what I'm dedicating all my time to right now.
I did want to mention this because since we spoke, I checked the record. Congratulations on the new baby
Oh,
boy, Dominic.
thank you. I appreciate it.
No problem. What challenge? I know you've already got a son. I think he's 2 or 3 years of age, if memory serves. But what extra challenges does a newborn bring to fight camp and to a fighter's lifestyle?
It is difficult because you have to do a lot more around the house. I mean, you have a newborn and a toddler running around. It's a lot difficult. It's a lot difficult for one person to kind of manage the both of them. So before it was easy for me to like, all right, have training here. Take this one child. I'll be back in a couple hours. But having your partner have to carry the weight and take care of two kids or whatever, you kind of have to carry your own weight around the house, so to speak. Where you have to be able to come home and be able to like give her a break where she can like go do her thing, and you have to step up and take care of the kids while she rests or whatever. And that adds a little bit of difficulty. I mean, some days like your body's literally beat up and exhausted from training, and you can't allow yourself to like not be dad. You still have to show up and be dad. It's not a job that you get to take time off from. And like regardless of how hard training was, regardless of how many hours of sleep I got the night before, regardless of how many calories I'm allowed to take in that day, I still have to go out and be dad and to be the best dad possible. So it is a little bit more difficult where I can't just come home, kick my feet up, relax, and watch TV. I have to come home and be dad, and whatever that entails. If it means I have to go run around and chase my kids, I have to go do that. If it means I have to hop on my bike and go ride around the neighborhood with my kid, I have to do that. Dad doesn't get to take time off because he's tired or had a long day. So that's the only bit of difficulty that adds at the end of the day.
Fighting is obviously a selfish endeavor. In many ways, it's all got to be all about the fighter, and the fighter has got to give 100% of himself. But does having the two boys, does that change your motivations going into this maybe maybe not last part of your career, but kind of this part of your career?
Yeah, I mean, at this stage of my career, definitely having the two boys, it definitely changed the mindset. Like you hear a lot of like one of the best I can explain it is like I'm probably gonna botch this quote, but it says something about like smart men learn from their mistakes, wise men learn from the mistakes of others. And you sit back and watch all these other fighters who've been there before you, whether it's Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, or whomever else, and you listen to the words that they say. Muhammad Ali had a very good quote where he's like, a man who looks at the world the same way he did at 60, he did at 40, at 20, wasted 40 years of his life. Something along those lines, he said. And I look at my life now with my two boys, and that's exactly where it's at. Like at one point in my life, like fighting was the most important thing for me. Is what I put all of the eggs into. Like I literally would like wake up and spend all my time at the gym and everything else like that. That's literally where I spent all my time. But now that I'm a father, like I don't get that luxury of spending all my time at the gym. I have to literally be the best possible father, and everything else comes secondary. But with that being said, fighting is also the way I provide for them, and it provides their future as well. So in this particular stage of my life, like the decisions that I make and the performances that I put on is going to determine how much time I get to spend with them over the next 10, 15 years as they're becoming who they're going to be in this world. So for me right now, winning is more important than ever because of the opportunity and lifestyle that it provides my children.
100%. I'd like to very quickly touch upon the welterweight champion, Leon Edwards, because since we spoke, the belt has changed hands in your division. I'd
Yeah.
like to know what was your reaction upon seeing Leon Edwards head kick knock out the champion Kamaru Usman.
Yeah, man, it was cool to see consistency pay off. I mean, it was consistently paying off right up until the last possible moment, and having to battle through adversity. I mean, the guy was on a 9 or 10 fight win streak, whatever it was. It was just one obstacle after the next. Nope, not yet. Fight this guy. Nope, not yet. Fight this guy. And even going into the fight with Kamaru Usman, I mean, he was literally getting his ass kicked. I think personally, the first 4 rounds, and to go out there the fifth round and get it done the way that he did, that was just showing the perseverance and mental fortitude that he has to continue to like push through regardless of what's happening around him. So if whether it means fighting all these guys who UFC put in front of him before getting his title shot, or whatever the means, having to weather the storm that Kamaru was putting on him in that fight in order to become champion. He endured it all and became champion. And it was very cool to see that at the end of the day.
100%. If we turn the conversation back to yourself for one final question, Neil, what I'd like to do is propose a scenario. You wake up in just over 2 weeks' time on the 16th of October after having your fight play out in the UFC Apex. What is the ideal scenario that you wake up for? What in an ideal world happens on the 15th of October?
Sorry, I think I misheard the question. So ideal.
What is the ideal scenario on the day you wake up after your fight? What do you want to have happened on the 15th of October versus Daniel Rodriguez?
Oh, after waking up and realize, like, man, that was a great win last night. I want to wake up Sunday morning with a contract saying I'm fighting Gilbert Burns in Brazil. That would be the ideal way to like put the cherry on top Sunday morning, waking up after a great victory.
So is the key in the next fight is getting an impressive win to further your position in the welterweight title picture?
100%. I mean, that's what it's for me. That's where it's at this point. It's like go out there, perform well to get those big fights that you want. Gilbert Burns had a very impressive fight. His last fight against Chimaev, and I feel like me going out there getting the job done against Dan Rodriguez kind of sets the stage for me to get that big fights. So right now it's like all hands on deck, all business against Dan Rodriguez. But in an ideal world, I want that bigger fight next immediately after, not taking another 8 months off or anything else like that. It's kind of like get the job done and move on to the next right away.
Well, as you said, you're not overlooking Daniel Rodriguez, and it all starts again on the 15th of October. So thank you so much for your time, as always. It's an absolute pleasure, and I wish you the best of luck for Fight Night in 2 weeks' time.
Awesome. I appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Before we finish, Neil, how can people find you on social media, and any sponsors you'd like to shout out? The floor is yours for the final word.
Yeah, as always, you guys can find me at Magny_170 on all social media platforms. And more importantly than me, make sure you guys check out mission111.org. It's a great organization that I work with that does mission work in both Haiti and the Philippines. So if you guys have a chance to check them out, it's mission111.org.
Make sure to subscribe to the LowKick MMA YouTube channel for all the latest news, event previews, and interviews with some of the biggest stars in MMA.